Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Catherine McGarry. I'm the Mayor of Cambridge and Chair of today's Special Emergency Council meeting. On behalf of Council, we hope that everyone is staying safe, continued practicing physical distancing, and that you're washing your hands regularly and wearing a mask where physical distancing is difficult. On behalf of Council, we want to say that across this great city, we're excited to see our local restaurants starting to open up their patios. And I'm delighted that staff have expedited the approval process to open new patios and also to expand existing ones. This marks another step forward in the city's recovery process, something we'd all like to see. City Hall opened its doors last week to the public with safety measures in place to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. There's controlled measures in place to protect everyone, staff and the public. And while the service desk is open to serve everyone, we are still encouraging you to continue accessing city services by telephone or online if you can, as much as you can. Now here's the exciting news. The Cambridge Farmers Market is very busy preparing to reopen this weekend on June 27th, with again, a lot of safety measures in place as well. We do continue to work at our staged approach to reopening our city facilities and amenities, guided by the advice and direction of public health officials, the province of Ontario's three-phased approach to reopening businesses, services, and public spaces, and the 3 stages of our own reopening framework. So there's a lot of people's directions that we need to follow to reopen safely. We've also got ongoing collaboration with the region of Waterloo and area municipalities to do this in lockstep. Overall, over the past months, I believe that this city has acted and responded quickly to the evolution of this pandemic, working together with our region and our municipal partners, our businesses, our community organizations, to ensure that we are doing absolutely everything that we can to prevent the spread of COVID-19 and protect our area residents. I'm really proud of the work that staff have done and accomplished, and very pleased that we're moving forward in a safe manner. I'd also like to note that this week, as a symbol of celebration for all the graduating students across Cambridge, the Cambridge sign and the pedestrian bridge will be lit up with school board colors this week, along with the falls at Jacob's Landing. So congratulations to all of our graduating students. For the first part of this week, the lighting will be maroon and gold for the Waterloo Catholic District School Board colors. The second part of the week will shine blue and white for the Waterloo Region District School Board. Residents are also encouraged to leave their porch lights on in order to honor our local graduates. This initiative was prompted by the graduation committee at St. Benedict Catholic Secondary School in Cambridge. So thanks to St. Benedict's for bringing this forward. We're all celebrating together. As we know, schools have been challenged with planning alternative graduation celebrations because the restrictions are still in place because of COVID-19. The city is really pleased to mark such an important milestone for our students. So again, our congratulations, and we're very proud of all of our 2020 graduates. As the summer officially begins, we want to remind everyone that we need to still continue practicing physical distancing, wear face coverings when outside and physical distancing is different, and to continue to wash our hands often. COVID-19 is still in broad circulation in our community, and we certainly don't want to see our numbers increase. We're all in this together, Cambridge. So we're excited to be here again with you for another special emergency council meeting. So I'm going to ask our clerk at this time to complete a roll call of council so that we can confirm attendance as we're coming to you electronically today. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Achade.
Present.
Councillor Devine.
Present.
Councillor Mehta.
Present.
Councillor Mann.
Present.
Councillor Reid.
Present.
Councillor Wolf.
Present.
Mayor McGarry.
Present.
And Councillor Liggett has sent her regrets.
Okay. In addition, we're going to take a moment to welcome the staff that we have joining us today. So joining us electronically today, we have our city manager, David Calder, our deputy city managers, Cheryl Zandlader, Hardy Bromberg, and Dave Bush, our director of economic development, James Goodrum, our director of asset management, Yogesh Shah, our chief planner, Elaine Brinshaw, our chief financial officer, Cheryl Ayers, our assistant city solicitor, Daryl Mast, our director of communications, Suzanne Hiller. I'll get that right yet. In addition, we have other staff joining us today from our planning services and our engineering divisions. And moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our city clerk, Danielle Manton, and our deputy clerk, James Hudson. Thanks again to our technology services staff, Greg Elgie, who is assisting us again with logistics for today's meeting. So we would like to move forward now and acknowledge that we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather today is the land traditionally used by the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We also acknowledge the deep, enduring presence and deep traditional knowledge and philosophies of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today. Now, Council, as this is a virtual meeting, I'll remind each member of Council who wishes to speak to use the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list today and invite you to speak when it's time. Also, a reminder to mute yourself when you're not speaking and unmute before you learn to speak. I haven't got that 100% myself yet, so I'll remind you if you're needing reminding. And that when we mute each other when we're not speaking, it does help to assist with our sound quality. So we'll move on to declarations of pecuniary interest. A reminder to members of council that if you've made declarations of pecuniary interest at a previous meeting, you'll have to do so again for the bylaw related to the same item. So members of council, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move ahead. Regarding delegations, as a result of City Hall closures and physical distancing guidelines being in place, in-person public attendance at special emergency meetings of council is not currently available. However, the procedures for electronic participation during the course of an emergency allow for the public to provide written submissions to the city clerk's office in advance of the meeting for the agendas on the items on the agenda, and also to call in via telephone to our virtual meeting. This afternoon, we do have 3 registered delegations joining us virtually, and we've also received 6 written delegations. So now we will begin, and we have one presentation this afternoon from James Goodrum, the Director of Economic Development, in regards to the Core Area Transformation Fund Framework, which is noted as item number 2 in the agenda package. So we'll have our clerk share her screen so that we can view the presentation, and following that, then I will invite council to ask questions. So welcome, James.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, Cheryl Zonletter is going to lead off with some opening remarks, and then I'll go into my presentation. Thank you.
That's great, and I know our clerk's getting that set up. So go ahead, Cheryl. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Through your worship, a little bit of background to preface the presentation and the report before you this afternoon. If you recall, in July of last year, staff brought a report proposing the constitution of a core area transformation fund. The purpose of the fund was to allocate the proceeds of industrial land sales, a portion of those proceeds, to a fund for transformational projects in the core areas to stimulate investment and promote vitality in all of our core areas. Towards the end of the year, staff brought a further report indicating that the fund had been made and constituted with that update, and committed to bringing a report back in early 2020 with the framework for how the administration of the fund would operate. And that is the purpose of the report before you today. We're very pleased to bring about the investment pillars and provide a little bit more details on how we see this initiative unfolding. I'll turn it over to you, James. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Onleiter. James?
Okay, Danielle, would you be able to share the PowerPoint presentation, and I'll walk council through it?
Yeah, there we go.
Just need 1 second here.
Can you see that, James?
Yeah, I just have to make one change here on my computer. Okay, so good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here. You know, as this report is recommending the approval of the Core Area Transformation Fund. So if you could go to the next slide, Danielle, please. So by way of background, a city's downtown area is really the primary representation of the city, and it's a reflection of the city as a whole. Next slide, please. So our core areas, you know, they have great potential and many competitive advantages compared to other, you know, cities of our size, such as the rivers, our built heritage, our restaurants, and our retail. However, we really need more people living in the core area to boost the urban vitality. Next slide, please. So if we invest in our core areas, as you see before you, these are some of the positive outcomes I believe we can look forward to. We'll have more people living in our core areas. We'll have increased employment. We'll have the ability to increase our talent attraction efforts. And that's really on the small business side. They're in a competition. Businesses are in a competition for talent, and providing, you know, the right atmosphere, the right environment for businesses to invest in, they can attract their employees to live here as well. And obviously we'll see an increase in the tax assessment base, and it will really, having more people living and working in the core areas will really boost the business case for rapid transit. Next slide, please. So a transformational project has, you know, some of the following characteristics, very similar to our expected outcomes. It's going to stimulate employment. There's going to be job creation. We want the projects to generate a return on investment, both direct and indirect. The property tax base will be stimulated. We're going to see that residential and office growth, hopefully in the core areas. And the projects will really contribute to placemaking and experience. Next slide, please. So one of the outcomes of the December 17th meeting, I believe it was the last update. We really made an effort, staff made an effort to get out and consult. So we've consulted with the BIA's executives, the BIA boards of management independently. We've met with our Economic Development Advisory Committee at least 3 times to talk about this. We've met with the Chamber of Commerce. They have a group called the Masterminds subgroup. We met with the Shades Mill Law Association. We've met with Rotary, as well as our internal stakeholders at the city. And I can tell you they're all very supportive of this initiative. Next slide, please. So to recap, we have 3 investment pillars. And it's important to note, I just want to highlight this again, that all projects that are proposed through this fund will be presented to council for final approval. So we're going to have a private sector stimulus program, which will be developed through a community improvement plan. And we'll develop that in-house over the next year with more public consultation. Obviously, we're going to have to work on how we're going to conduct that public consultation, and then we'll bring it through for council approval. And the focus is really going to be on stimulating new or renovated housing and the reuse of underutilized space. Our second pillar is what we call strategic land acquisition, and you're very familiar with this. We have recent examples of 58 Ainsley Street in downtown, as well as most recently as last week, 74 Queen Street East in Hespeler. And our final pillar, the third pillar, is what we call placemaking experiences. And this will really be the focus for BIA's staff and the public to put forward proposals that are transformative to the core areas, that leverage private dollars and don't result in high operating costs for the city. Next slide, please. This might be a little bit easier to see in the report package, but economic development staff, the advisory committee, economic development advisory committee, along with the project proponents, will act as the initial review body for funding opportunities. So opportunities will be presented or sponsored by, it could be City of Cambridge staff, it could be the Economic Development Advisory Committee, it could be one of the 3 BIAs or them together, or any member of council. So essentially what will happen is economic development staff will review and confirm the strategic alignment and develop the opportunity with input from the Economic Development Advisory Committee, as well as the proponent of the project. And then a steering committee made of city staff with representation of multiple departments. So we try to get a great broad section scope of people involved across the city that could could be impacted by this, in that perhaps it's something that their department will have to maintain or operate. So we have that multiple departments doing a secondary review, and they'll be making recommendations with us, economic development staff, to the corporate leadership team and ultimately to City Council for approval. So some of the evaluation criteria that we've developed. Obviously, we want projects that align with our corporate strategic direction. We'll be looking at cost. Is this a public-private funding type model? Are there going to be other dollars from the business community or what have you put towards this project? Are there grant applications that can be used to assist in offsetting some of the costs? What's the operating effect on the city in terms of staff resources in our operating budget? The infrastructure impact, is it going to enhance an existing or planned project, or is this an entirely new project? And community benefit is really around, is the project transformational, in answering some of those questions. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, pending council's approval of this report this evening, we've worked with our communication staff and we've developed a communications plan with a media release. A web page has been developed with information related to the project, as well as a promotional package. We will communicate directly with the BIAs and core area stakeholders. As well, we'll be bringing forward a core areas monitoring report so we can establish a baseline to which we can measure the success of the program. And as I noted before, we will start our work on developing a new program of financial incentives to stimulate core area development. And that'll be coming back to council as well. Next slide. So there you have my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, James. Hang on, I will just, there we are. Okay, if you will stand by for questions. Councillor Reid, you're first there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to James. Well, first of all, I want to say how excited I have been since the initiation of this. And I think even the weather is cooperating because the sun suddenly came out as you were talking. So that is good.
That's
but my
sign.
question, my question really is around place making and experiences. And I don't have a really good idea in my head of what that means. I wonder if you could just expand on that so I better understand what the term actually entails.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, we've tried to keep it somewhat open because we don't know what the projects are, and we didn't want to specifically limit people's ability to propose things. But if you look at some of the projects we've undertaken, and I always like to use, actually the simplest examples are a Cambridge sign out front of City Hall, or the Hessler sign that was just put up. We have people now that, those are kind of, iconic pieces of infrastructure, in that if they're visiting the city or visiting the Hessler core, they go and they have their picture taken in front of it, and and they're posting that on the web. So, those sorts of things. It could be public art. If you look at some of the streetscaping projects we've been undertaking, we have set aside space for potential public art features down the road. So somebody could come in with a great idea for a piece of public art, and obviously in that case, we'd work with the Public Arts Advisory Committee. And, so I guess the short answer is we don't really know what those projects are. We wanted to leave it open, but these are some of the key things. There could be ideas to enhance a gateway to the downtown core. That's as a result of a new development or what have you. I hope that kind of sheds a little bit of light.
Yeah, thank you very much. It does make it a little more clear to me what one could propose, and I'm sure that the BIAs are ecstatic over this and will come up with some really great ideas. Thank you, James.
Oh, actually, I should say, through the mayor, one of the things I should have mentioned is, yes, the BIAs are already thinking about projects, as they have been for some time, as well as our staff. So we have a couple great ideas from city staff as well. And yeah, so we'll see where it goes.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Devine. Councillor Devine.
Yes, and through the chair, James, thank you for your presentation. Well done. I have 3 questions. 1, who is the Shades Mill Law Association? Who are they?
The Shades Mill Law Association is basically the Cambridge Law Association. So that's the group of lawyers in that practice law in the city. Okay.
The vetting. When projects are vetted, they go through the economic development staff, EDAC, et cetera, If they don't get vetted through that process, will council ever find out about them, or they just die a death?
Through the mayor, no, the intention would be that we report annually on the success of the program. And part of that would be looking at applications that perhaps did not proceed through. If somebody makes an application, we're going to work with them to determine if it will be successful or not. We'll work with the BIAs and what have you, but we would obviously report that through our reporting annually.
May I suggest we do that semi-annually in the reporting?
Through the mayor, yes, that can be done.
Thank you very much. And the third question, the steering committee. Are there any councillors on the steering committee, or is it just all staff?
Through the mayor, at this point, what I had proposed, and it's within the report, that it was a staff steering committee, but we'd obviously be open to council's direction on that as well.
I would like to see 3 councillors on that steering committee, 1 from each core area. Can we, do I need to make a motion on that, Madam Mayor?
How about we get back to you there? We'll take questions from James and then we'll look at staff direction. Would that be okay?
That'd
So
be wonderful.
Get
Thank
through
you.
the others.
Yep. Thank
well,
you.
If I forget, you know how to get my attention.
Oh, I know how to do that.
That's great. Thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and to James, I'm very excited about this fund and using it, though I am concerned that it's a fixed amount of money. It's money we have from our industrial reserve left over. So originally, when we were looking at this, we were talking about things like the expansion of the School of Architecture, Conestoga College. If they're not ready to expand within the next year or 2, will we be looking to keep back some money for some major projects like that? Or are we going to be just sort of looking at, oh, here's this money, BIAs, et cetera, people have ideas to spend it, and we spend it all in the next year or so? Is there any thought to reserving some of it?
Through the mayor, the money, some of the money will be returned to the coffers. Take, for example, the acquisition of 58 Ainsley Street. The intention is that location will be a terminus of the future LRT. 58 Ainsley in the parking lot, perhaps one day, not anytime soon, but in the medium to longer term, that area could be redeveloped, and the money from the sales of those parcels would be returned back into this fund. So it'd be a bit of a revolving fund, as well as some of the financial incentives that we are looking at could be an interest-free loan. So the loan money would go out and come back in. And with specific, we felt at this time with the $20 million, it was a good start. We don't know how, well, it's a great start. I shouldn't say good, it's a great start. And we don't really know how, what the uptake's going to be. So that's something that we'll be reviewing annually. And, looking at issues as we move along, as they present themselves. And Cheryl Ayers has been working, obviously this has gone through CLT and gone through our CFO, and those are some of the things we're looking at. But the point of today's report is really to establish it. Let's get started, and recognizing your concern and see how things develop over time.
Thank you. That's comforting to hear that the money, we are looking at putting money back into the fund. And because I just wouldn't want us ever to be in a position where we have a great opportunity to help either Conestoga College or the School of Architecture and find that we've run out of funds. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other further questions from members of council? I'm going to just make a few comments myself as chair's privilege. And James, I can't be more excited about this. I know when the idea came forward, we had all kinds of things that we could imagine. I think you've explained very well that these funds can be a revolving fund for whatever it happens to be. And that has worked well in the past so that you can continue to look forward for projects. I wanted to just talk a little bit more about placemaking, if I may. I'm going back a couple of decades now, I think, or almost, to the time before the Civic Admin building was built on the spot that it's here. We had a placemaking operation out of the States come and consult with us, who were on the board of Heritage Cambridge at the time, who looked at revamping a lot of the public space around Mississauga City Hall. So we brought them out at the expense of Heritage Cambridge for a seminar one night and then a workshop the next day. And what we were looking at was really trying to define what placemaking means. And what is placemaking? It's that that extra secret sauce that brings people into an area, and they may not just have one activity to go to, such as shopping or sitting on a park bench outside a park, that there's other activities that you keep compounding into that spot so that it draws people and keeps them there. A few examples we witnessed actually when James and I were representing the city of Cambridge at a previous event in San Francisco. We saw some street art that was interactive, special twirly chairs, unique lighting features in the middle of the boulevard, unique features that families could sort of play on while they were doing a shopping experience. And I remember at the end of the workshop that we did, as I said before, the Civic Admin building got going, a lot of the projects were actually generated from the participants in that workshop that day. They envisioned a space where you could put a climbing wall, coffee tables that could be outside all year round that were painted with checkers. You could have a local coffee shop sort of give out the checkers, for instance. You could have netting over top of some of our alleyways that would light it so that it would be a welcoming public space and not so scary at night. There were a lot of different ideas that you could put in all the different spaces. And placemaking is really what provides the incentive for businesses to settle there, for residents to come and stay rather than just come down to a downtown core, have a meal and go home. And this is what is so exciting about this fund. I can't be more delighted about it, because this is what is going to assist us in making sure that we recover economically in our downtown cores and stay vibrant, especially after the economic downturn that we've all experienced because of the pandemic. The last thing I just wanted to clarify again was that our property taxes for our ratepayers are not going to be affected. Is that correct, James? I just wanted to make the point that this money is not going to affect property taxes.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. It is coming from the proceeds of sales of industrial land in the Boxwood Business Park.
And we're completed the Boxwood Business Park land sales right now. Is that correct?
Just about correct. We have one property that we may be reselling, but other than that, it is sold out.
Okay, so this repurposing of that $20 million fund is really essential, and in order to give us a kickstart, and again, that extra edge, that secret sauce that makes our core areas so wonderful, and especially with the rivers around us, I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do in the future. So thank you, James, for your time today and for providing the presentation to Council. And now we're ready for the motion. So Councillor Adshade, I believe you have the motion for item number 2, the Core Areas Transformation Fund Framework. Please read it in its entirety. Thank you.
I do, Your Worship, and thank you. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Devine. The Core Areas Transformation Fund Framework recommendation, that report 20-076 CRE regarding the Core Area Transformation Fund be received, and that the Core Areas Transformation Fund Framework attached as Appendix A and the evaluation criteria for Pillar 3 projects attached as Appendix B to report 20-076 CRE be approved.
Thank you. Now, are there any further questions for staff? Oh yes, Councillor Devine, I know exactly what you're going to say, I think. Go ahead, Councillor Devine.
Yes, I'm certainly in favor of the motion. There certainly can be a lot done with the downtown course. But I do believe on the steering committee, there should be 3 councillors, and those councillors should be from the 3 cores. And I would like to make a motion to that effect, that those 3 councillors go on the steering committee. And if I can get a second.
Yep, just 1 second and see if we need just direction or a motion.
Oh, direction would probably work.
Mayor McGarry, it's David.
Yes.
Direction would be fine, and we can make that change to the steering committee, and we'll connect with those councillors at a later date.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, I'm very supportive of the motion.
Okay, and in saying that, could I just have a nod or a not nod or a shake of the head from council members that that's okay for direction? I'm certainly in favor of having the people on. Yep. Councillor Mann. Yep. Yep. So I've got nods all around and thumbs up. So we'll provide that direction to staff. Now, speaking back to the motion, are there any other questions for staff from members of council? Seeing none, does council have any further comments? Seeing none, I'll now call for the vote. So Madam Clerk, will you please call for the vote?
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
In favor? Sorry. Okay.
Councillor Devine. Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
That's great. Thank you so very much. That's it for that one. Thank you. So we'll move ahead now to our next item, which is our consent agenda. If a member of council wishes to comment on any of the consent items, please let us know by your raise hand feature. And in the interest of time, we'll look to vote on the consent procedures in a block. But if you wish to comment, you are welcome to do so. I don't see anybody flagging me at the moment. So Councillor Reid, you have the motion. Will you please read it in its entirety?
Thank you, Mayor McGarry. Yes, I have the motion. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Wolf that all items listed under the heading of consent procedure for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020, Council agenda be adopted as recommended. The items: number 1, special emergency council minutes, June 16, 2020. Item 6, cash in lieu of parkland, cash in lieu of parking and increased density statement for the year ended December 31st, 2019. Number 7, letter of credit policy. Number 8, 2019 year-end report on investments.
Thank you. Does council have any comments or questions for staff? Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, under cash in lieu of payment and cash in lieu of parking, that money was going to, I think, public art and affordable housing. Am I correct? To staff?
Cheryl, go ahead. Thank you.
Councillor Wolf, you are correct. A portion of the money is going towards public art and affordable housing. There was in 2019 $30,000 that was directed towards public art reserve fund and $17,000 directed toward the affordable housing reserve fund.
And I guess my question is, with the great need we have for affordable housing, was there a reason why 30,000 went to public art and only 17 to affordable housing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I believe it's based on the type of application received. I'm not sure if Elaine can add anything further to that.
Go ahead, Ms. Brunshaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In response to Councillor Wolf's question, the amount of money that has been received to date is a reflection of the status of applications. So some big subdivisions where we've negotiated contributions to the Affordable Housing Reserve are still at the point of working through conditions of draft approval and are not yet registered, and we're not issuing building permits. So once those building permit approvals start to flow, then additional monies will be coming into the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund as per negotiated arrangements that the city has made with various developers. And to date, we've had one developer with a small project that has contributed to the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund, and that's why we've only got 17,000 at this time. But there are plans for a lot more money to be flowing into that account as development is proceeding. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for staff? Comments? Seeing none, I'll now ask our clerk to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Attrade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Thank you very much. So our next item is item number 3, the electric vehicle charging stations, the regional agreement. Now, Councillor Ermetta, you have this motion. Will you please read it in its entirety?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do. This motion is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Item 3, electric vehicle charging stations, the regional agreement. The recommendation is that council receive report number 20-130 CRE, electric vehicle charging stations, and that council directs staff to enter into an agreement with the Region of Waterloo to coordinate Natural Resources Canada grant funding opportunity and facilitate project management services on behalf of the corporation of the city of Cambridge related to the procurement and installation of electric vehicle charging stations. And further, that council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement subject to the satisfaction of the city solicitor.
Thank you, Councillor Mehta. Do we have any questions for staff? Councillor Devine.
Thank you, through the chair. We have already, and I'm in favor of this, by the way. Okay, this is great. This is the future. Actually, it's the present. But I do have a couple questions. We have already put in the city some electric charging stations. There was 2 put in on Tannery Street in Hesper a couple years ago. They were probably put in the most inopportune place they should have been put in. They should have been put in a parking lot, because we have difficulty with parking in the downtown core. There's not much of it. So we took up two public parking spaces when it should have been put either at the library or at the public lot next to the Bank of Montreal, which is relatively well used. But my question is, the current charging stations that the city has already put in, will these people be looking after those and maintaining those as well, or is this a separate contract? Can anybody from staff answer that question, please?
Yep, Mr. Shaw, Yogesh Shaw.
Region of Waterloo is, through Madam Chair, Region of Waterloo is looking at a contract for installation and working with the contractor to provide the installation for this new charging stations. Operational maintenance would be part of that contract to begin with during the warranty period, and then city would take over the maintenance agreement for that charging stations, and we can retain our own contractor. So it's not a third-party contract. We can retain whichever contract we want to hire.
Okay, so the contractor then would look after all the charging stations in the city?
That we will determine as the contract comes for renewal.
Okay, because I would think we'd like to look after them all at once with the same people, because there's already some in that.
Makes sense.
As a matter of fact, I don't even think they're functioning, to be honest with you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions for staff? Does council have any comments? Seeing none, I'd like to make one myself and just say that I'm very much in support of this direction that we've got in front of us. I think that as more and more people are trying to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, trying to go to a hybrid or an electric vehicle, that the infrastructure will assist those in making those decisions when purchasing an electric vehicle to begin with. Charging stations are very important so that they know where they can do it in a timely way. So I'm very supportive and very pleased that we could take advantage of the NRCan or Natural Resources Canada funding opportunity. So very supportive of this direction. And seeing no further questions or comments, I'm going to ask Madam Clerk to call for the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
Favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Thank you very much. So our next item is item number 4, proposed meeting times for the revised schedule of council meetings during a declared emergency. We have 1 registered delegation today on this item. 4 items of correspondence have been submitted. I'll ask that we're patient while we make arrangements for the delegate to join the meeting. Once the delegate joins our meeting, they will have 5 minutes to speak to their item. As everyone is aware at this time, our rules do not permit in-person delegations, but will permit electronic submissions received in advance of the meeting as well. Delegates can also call into our meetings to speak to items. As I mentioned, we have one delegate joining us today on our next item. Connie Cody has registered to speak to the proposed meeting times for the revised schedule of council meetings during a declared emergency. We are going to contact Connie, invite her to access our meeting, and invite her in to provide her delegation. So I'll ask for your patience while our staff take a moment to make this happen. Connie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Good. Can everybody hear Connie? Yep, it appears so. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us today to delegate. A reminder that you have 5 minutes to address council, so please ensure that your remarks relate directly to the agenda item that you're speaking to. Otherwise, we may ask that you end your remarks. We do have rules of engagement in council meetings and ask that you ensure that your remarks are respectful and that you refrain from asking questions of council. I'll advise you when your 5 minutes is up, at which time council may have questions for you. So once we are ready to move forward with the item, we will have you stay on the call while we discuss the item, but our staff will mute you at that time, but you can hear the outcome of council's decision. We'll then remove you from the meeting once council's decision has been voted on. So welcome again, Connie. You now have 5 minutes to speak to the item.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councillors, staff, and listeners. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address you today. As a lifelong resident of Cambridge, I am presenting this delegation with a concern on the proposed meeting time revision. This request came about as a wish, not a need. Why is it necessary to change the time for council meetings when it would make it difficult for certain councillors and most residents to take part? Evening times for council were established to allow more opportunity for the public to be engaged on city matters and participate in the decision-making process. This need has not changed. Revising council meetings to an afternoon time does not fit the emergency needs criteria and is only a convenience. If not an emergency, for no reason other than convenience, an elected representative is being excluded through no fault of their own, creating a second vacant seat around the horseshoe. Council meetings serve as an important democratic function and are valuable in facilitating citizen participation and building relationships between council and the people. Decision-making should not be based on personal viewpoints and where it does not represent a collaborative approach of council who are meant to work together in the best interest for the community. In all things, the city's vision, mission, and values of integrity, respect, inclusiveness, and service has to be upheld. This is not transparency, nor is it democracy, and it does not better the community when decisions are made that forces the council seat to be vacant. To be respectful and achieve an inclusive council, the most logical compromise would be a start time no earlier than 6 p.m. to allow current councillors and citizens to participate, or leave the status quo. I appreciate your serious consideration and request that you not vote in favor of the new time.
Thank you very much, Connie. You've completed your remarks?
Yes.
Just checking. Thank you. All right. Is there any questions for the delegate from members of council? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time. And again, you may stay on to listen to hear this item go ahead. Thank you. Okay, so again, members of council, I will just remind you that the delegate will remain online if she so wishes to until we've voted, and then our staff will remove them from the meeting. We want to thank you for participating in our meeting and also for your delegation today. And as you're probably aware, the meeting is live streaming, so you're welcome to watch the remainder of our meeting on the City of Cambridge YouTube channel if you'd so wish. As mentioned, we also have 3 items of correspondence which have been submitted. So I'll ask that our Deputy Clerk read out 2 of the received submissions from Carol Thorman, followed by Sandy Faulkner as requested. So again, our Deputy Clerk, James Hudson, will read the correspondence received.
Thank you. Dear Mayor McGarry and Council, I would like Council to reconsider your intentions to continue holding meetings at times other than regularly scheduled 7 o'clock meetings, as is the norm. I understand that the Provincial Bill 187 Emergency Act gives you the right to hold meetings electronically, but it does not specifically alter meeting times. While we were all in a lockdown for the past several months, the general public still has the ability to follow and indeed participate in council meetings, but times have changed. It can easily be argued that since we have advanced to stage 2 in our region and city departments are opening up again, with many of the general public back to work, the council needs to recognize that in order to provide continued public accessibility, it is time to return to regular evening meetings. Convenience of staff and council should not supersede public access and convenience if we are to have any degree of transparency. While inconvenient to all, this virus will apparently require that adjustments be made for the foreseeable future, and we have moved on from emergency to the new normal. If this motion passes, you have effectively changed the status of what is considered a part-time position to full-time with all the ramifications that brings. The gainfully employed need not apply. I note from your included charts that the question asked was preferred time, not availability. I also note that both of the councillors still not collecting pensions and gainfully employed, like the majority of your constituents, indicated that their preferred time was 6 p.m. Still an hour earlier than regular meetings, but more conducive to allowing public input. This epidemic is indeed challenging on many levels, but we can and will come through it by taking all necessary precautions to ensure that there is as little disruption as possible. By making duly elected members of this council choose between providing a livelihood and serving constituents, you do a disservice to the electorate. Respectfully submitted, Carol Thorman. Dear Mayor McGarry and members of council and city staff, I write to you today to express my concerns over the recent motion to change city council meetings from 7 p.m. to 4 p.m. while our province is in a state of emergency. While I understand the Municipal Act allows for extraordinary measures during this time, I'm struggling to understand the necessity of this change or the rationale behind it. We are slowly starting to reopening our economy. We are in phase 2. We are making progress. In 2018, when I ran for the city election for Ward 6, I was fully aware that the position of council member involved a commitment to evening meetings. Most of you are aware that I look after teenagers with complex needs. It's necessary for a parent or staff member to be in the home at all times to address those needs. 7 o'clock meetings times worked into my schedule, my husband's schedule, my staff schedules, and my children's schedules. I ran in the election with this knowledge and assurance. But for the difference of 691 votes, I would be sitting in the same position as Councillor Liggett, appealing to you to understand the dilemma you have put us in because you don't want to work late into the evening anymore. And maybe it's not as simple as that, but the reality is that how my children will view the sudden and unexpected change. How would you have me explain this to my children, my place of employment, my husband, and my staff, the people of Ward 6? I watched the council meeting where this was discussed. I heard Councillor Liggett appeal for understanding of her work schedule. It matters not who she works for, where she works, or when she works. The matter of the fact is that she was elected to council with the understanding that council meetings were at 7 p.m. I see no justification to change this in the middle of her term. I see no justification to change this at all. We are currently without representation in Ward 7. Councillor Liggett's absence would leave us without representation in Ward 4. I am privy to the number of eligible voters in these wards because of my participation in the last election. So let me tell you how the reality really looks. That's 18,345 voters without democratic representation at the municipal level. That's 21% of eligible voters in Cambridge without an elected voice at the table. 9,778 of those eligible voters will not be represented. Given the demographics and dynamics of the ward that Councillor Liggett represents, I can assure you, you will be working late into the evening and probably even more than you are now. Please reconsider this. Sincerely, Sandy Faulkner. Thank you, members of council.
Thank you very much. Now, before we move to the motion, I understand our clerk is going to clarify some wording to the original motion after further discussion with Councillor Liggett. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. After further discussion with Councillor Liggett, the following resolution is proposed to Council rather than a leave of absence on Councillor Liggett's behalf. The motion would be that Council approve start times for the meetings noted in Appendix A of Report 2166 CRS, being the revised schedule of special emergency council meetings to be held during the state of emergency period related to the COVID-19 pandemic. That Council received correspondence from Councillor Jan Liggett dated June 15th, 2020, requesting to be absent from council meetings for three successive months effective June 23rd, 2020, or until Council returns to the regular meeting schedule. And further, that Council grant permission to Councillor Jan Liggett to be absent from any special emergency meetings of Council effective June 23rd for 3 successive months or until such time as Council returns to the regular meeting schedule.
Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Council to, if you are agreeable to dealing with this motion in 2 parts. The first part would be the timing of special emergency council meetings during emergencies. Do I see nods? If we can break those in, yes. Yep. Okay.
Catherine, can you speak more clearly into your microphone? I'm having trouble hearing. Thank you.
Yes, it slipped. How's that? Better?
That's better. Thank you. I was having trouble.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, always just note, because it does tend to slip and I don't see it, believe it or not. All right, I'm going to repeat that then. Council will be agreeable then to dealing with the motion in 2 parts. I saw that nod. And the first part will deal with the timing of special emergency council meetings during emergencies. And then the remaining part of this motion related to the request from Councillor Liggett would be addressed only if required. Okay, is that acceptable to Council? And it is. So Councillor Mann, you have the first part of the motion. Please read the motion in its entirety.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do have it, and it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Reid that Council approve the following start time, 4:00 p.m. for the meetings noted in Appendix A of Report 20-166 CRS, being the revised schedule of special emergency council meetings to be held during the state of emergency period related to COVID-19 pandemic.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Are there any questions for staff? Councillor Devine.
I don't have any questions for staff. I'd like to speak on the motion.
Okay, let me just go through questions and then I'll come back to you for comment. Would that be acceptable?
That's more than acceptable. Thank you.
Okay.
I do believe that the mover and seconder have first choice of speaking to the motions.
Yes, and I was going to get to you. It's hard to figure out who clicks on what first here. That's part of the challenge of doing electronic things from here. All right, so questions of staff then. And I've got a lineup. So Councillor Mann, since you brought the motion up, would you want to speak first to this then?
I don't have any questions, Your Worship, but I would speak to the issue.
Okay, I'm just going to ask for just actual visual wave. Does anybody have questions of staff first before I go to comments? Nope. So Councillor Mann, I will have you first, then Councillor Reid, and then Councillor Devine, and then the rest. Go ahead, Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, I just want to state that I really believe that this is not a divisive issue. And unfortunately, we've received a number of messages today that would give council the impression that it is a divisive issue, when in fact, I believe it's more of a problem-solving, team-building opportunity. Councillor Liggett has identified a problem to us, and she's identified what she believes is the solution to the problem. But I hope that we can come up with other solutions to the problem, because I think Councillor Liggett is a vital part of this team and has a vital part to play. She is dedicated and committed to her constituents, and she, like I say, is a vital part of our team. We can come up with possible solutions and decide as a team on the best solution, It may not be ideal for any one person, but what's important is that we come up with a solution. The team, the council comes up with a solution. And I think back on March 17th, when the province declared a state of emergency in relation to COVID-19, and shortly thereafter, the region and the municipalities followed suit. Since that time, council has held a number of emergency council meetings remotely under the authority of Section 238 of the Municipal Act. And the majority of these meetings have been held at either 3 or 4 o'clock. And there's good reason for that, because we're in a state of emergency. The way in doing business changes dramatically. Council will continue to meet remotely until such time as the emergency has been lifted. And it's important to remember that we're still in a state of emergency. And I think when people hear that we're in stage 1 or we're in stage 2 and we're starting to recover, we're starting to open up, it's easy to get into the mindset that we're almost out of this, but we're not almost out of it. We're just entering into stage 2 and we're still in a state of emergency. And we have meetings, we have 2 more meetings scheduled in July and August, 2 meetings, 2 emergency council meetings, one in July and one in August. Once the emergency has been lifted, and that could occur in a matter of days, weeks, or months, council will return to normal, whatever normal is going to be, but those normal meeting times as stated in our procedural bylaws. So for 2 meetings, we're looking at starting at 4 o'clock and hope to return to the 7 o'clock meetings come September, if not earlier. But we are still under a state of emergency. City Hall may be open, but many staff are not back at work. Physical distancing still remains a challenge. And the way we do business is very different and takes much longer remotely. Maintaining our emergency council meetings, and it's important to remember that these are just emergency council meetings during the state of emergency at 4 o'clock, is not a preference. It's a necessity. With the volume of work facing council, special council meetings have been scheduled throughout July and August, with full day statutory public meetings scheduled for July 28th and August 25th. We haven't talked about planning and development or general committee meetings. Again, this is not a preference, but it's absolutely necessary because of staff and the work that they have to do to get us to the point of having a meeting. I don't support Councillor Liggett taking a leave of absence. She has a vital role to play on council. And I would want to see her here, and I would hope that we can come up with a solution as we discuss this, to have her at the meetings whenever she can make it. But it's important to maintain the schedule of 4 o'clock so that we can continue to have these meetings and complete the work that needs to be done, because the work ahead of us is significant. And to start less than 4 or later than 4 o'clock is going to be difficult, to say the least. And I submit that respectfully, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mann. Councillor Reid, you're next.
I have to remember to unmute myself. Thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, I do have some comments to make. I am distressed that I find myself engaged in a dispute over temporary starting times for our special emergency council meetings. I am distressed that the community members don't have all the information about why a time change is needed. Choosing dates and starting times for these special emergency meetings has not been an arbitrary decision. It has been based on what works best for the continuation of city business in these unprecedented times. We have staff working from home with only a skeleton at City Hall to prepare agendas, set up the hardware for Zoom meetings and run those meetings. The technology of Zoom allowed virtual meetings, and staff have set up ways that the public can be involved. There is no scientific data that I am aware of that says an evening meeting means more of the public can be involved. The workforce has changed from 9 to 5 world to one that allows interaction at various times of the day. One prime example is radio phone-in shows that have large numbers of callers during the day on any given topic. There are many times that council needs to meet during the day. They include closed council meetings, information or educational meetings, advisory committee meetings, and budget meetings. Councillor Liggett has attended these meetings over the last 5 years in recognition that not all meetings can be held outside of the business day. This pandemic has significantly altered how we do business. We are coping with the use of technology and changing how our staff is deployed. These are not normal times. Since the emergency was declared, council has met virtually 9 times. March the 25th from 3 to 5, April the 1st from 3 to 5, April 16 from 3 to 5, April 26 from 3 to 5, May 7th from 3 to 5, May 18 from 4 to 6, June 2nd from 4 to 6, June 16 from 4 to 6, June 18 from 6 to 8, which was a joint meeting with North Dumfries. Councillor Liggett attended all of the special emergency meetings, but it should be noted that on June the 16th, she entered the meeting late. Councillor Liggett has declared that she is unable to attend any further special emergency meetings of council if they are held during the business day. Perhaps it is COVID-19 that has caused Councillor Liggett's current stand to not attend the special emergency council meetings and to request a leave of absence for a 3-month period. Staff has attempted to accommodate Councillor Liggett by moving the start time to 4 p.m. This would require her to give up 1 hour of her workday for council business. This accommodation was not accepted. I had hoped that together as a council, we might explore creative ways to meet the needs of all councillors while providing for the successful continuation of city business. I am distressed that this goal seems unreachable. I will vote for a 4 o'clock emergency meeting time because it meets the needs of the majority of councillors. It utilizes staff in this emergency in the best way possible, and it guarantees the successful continuation of city business. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine, you're up next. Councillor Devine.
Thank you. And through the chair. This is difficult at best. We need all council at all meetings. When each and every one of us got elected, we stood up, ran for election. We all knew that there would be meetings through the day, as well as meetings in the evening, including Saturday and Sunday. However, historically, council meetings in the city of Cambridge, council general committee, prior to COVID-19, were 7 at night. Now, we don't want to get our society put in a position where only a privileged can run for council. The people that work 9 to 5, the bankers, the business people, et cetera, et cetera. It is, the world's changed. It's 24/7. There's people that work all kinds of shifts. They work 6-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, work in the technological sector. And a lot of people are working from home. But in saying that, the 4 o'clock, any time of the day is fine for me, to be honest with you. I was probably the only one that put down one time. 4 o'clock's fine. I put down 4 o'clock. But we need everyone here at the meeting. Okay, and we give all the excuses we want. We can make, we can go through the whole ball of wax. Now, I would like to make a motion, amendment to the motion. If I get a seconder, or even make a motion, and this, the chair will have to rule on this, that in the future, that the meetings be held at 6 o'clock in the evening from 4 o'clock. Because when I sit and look at what we have here, we're having emergency council meetings that we're scheduling out a month ahead of time. I got an emergency council meeting for the 14th of July. Well, emergencies to me is within 24 hours. There's no reason why we can't have them at 6 o'clock. There's no reasons whatsoever. So if I can get a seconder, please.
Councillor Devine, I'm going to wait until we're finished the comments for this first round and then come back to you for that amendment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks.
Councillor Devine, I've had some correspondence here from the clerk, and while this motion is on the floor, we won't be putting that one on the floor at this particular time. We'll deal with this one first.
Okay, well, I will strongly vote against the motion to get it changed to 6 o'clock because we can't have this in our city
Thank you for
council.
your comment. I'm going to move ahead to Councillor Ermetta.
Well, I thank you, Your Worship, and I do appreciate hearing all of the comments around council on this. As a representative of the Downtown Cambridge Business Improvement Association, I do have a letter I would like to read out. I promised them I would. So the Downtown Cambridge BIA strongly urges council to select a start time for the special emergency meetings that work for every councillor, including our Ward 4 councillor, Jan Liggett. If a time cannot be decided upon unanimously, the special emergency council meetings should take place at the original council meeting time of 7 p.m. The Downtown Cambridge BIA represents over 230 businesses.
I'm going to
Yeah.
interrupt here. This has to be to the motion. This has
That
to be
is-
to the motion, and it's not for now. We are
I
going to
can't
deal with
hear.
the motion. Sorry, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, we're speaking to the motion, not the
Thank you.
correspondence.
Well,
Councillor
thank
Ermetta,
you.
I'm
This-
ruling that you
this
can
is-
deal with the first motion.
Okay, then I will get back to that then, but this is to do with the motion. Okay, Your Worship, so the BIA would like all council members present. And if, like I said, they want to go back to the other time if we can't agree, but they want all members present. And I also want to speak to my own ward that a lot of the residents in my ward work during the day. And they do prefer later meetings, such as 6 o'clock. So that's what I'll be supporting. 6 o'clock was put forward as an option, which I agreed to, and Councillor Liggett
Councillor
agreed to.
Ermetta, I'm going to interrupt again and say yet again, we are dealing with a motion on the floor right now for the 4 o'clock. If we get past that, then we'll put something else back on the floor.
Well, then thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wolf, speaking to the motion on the floor, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would like to echo the comments of Councillor Mann and Councillor Reid that I think it's not just a choice, the 4 o'clock. I think it's essential for our city business to operate smoothly. And one fact is that you can join this meeting by phone from any place, which actually gives more access to our meetings, not less. There are many people that can't come out to City Hall. They've got commute times, etc. But many people do have access to the phone, including Councillor Liggett. I've noticed that she's been sending messages throughout the day today. So, and she can also come to the meeting late. So if she can't be here at 4 o'clock, whenever she can arrive, as she did and the other meeting, she can join the meeting. And in terms of Councillor Devine's comment that it's essential that we're at every meeting. Well, during the year, I can point out, for instance, in January and many other times during the year, other councillors haven't been able to join the meeting. Sometimes we're not able to. Sometimes people choose that time for their vacation, even though they know council is sitting. So though it would be ideal if we could all be here all the time at every meeting, it's just not practical. In terms of some of the comments made in the letters, I think the reality that we've all come to realize is being a city councillor is not a part-time job. The hours that we spend and the hours that are required are not simply one council meeting a month for however many hours it is. It does involve committee work, daytime work, hours reading your agendas, preparing, asking questions. So I think we often put in 40 hours a week. So I think anyone who wants to run for city council has to realize that they need to have flexible hours and be prepared that it's many more hours than people realize. And I will be voting for this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mehta, you still have your hand up. Did you want to speak again to the motion, but without changing it?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to speak again. So I appreciate all the comments. Yes, being a counselor is a full-time job. We do a lot of work, but at the same time, we can't qualify for a mortgage to buy a house, and we need an extra income on the side. And that does involve working during the day. And there are people who are self-employed who need that flexibility. And again, I've got constituents who work during the day. So those are going to be the reasons why I'm opposing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if you wouldn't mind removing your hand, then it doesn't add to the confusion. Thank you very much. Seeing no further comments to this, I'm going to provide a few myself. And I think it's really important for everyone to note that we are not operating under regular circumstances. We are under a state of emergency. Since March, Cambridge Council, as listed by Councillor Reid and others, has been meeting virtually for special emergency council sessions between 3 and 4 p.m. to deal with timely items. We are still under a state of emergency, but are now trying to move to more regular weekly meetings to catch up with the backlog that you haven't seen before you just yet. One of the reasons to continue with an earlier start time is because sessions are now longer in order to deal with the backlog, which we really haven't hit yet. I've seen that work coming forward. And we also have to ensure that the technical and the logistical issues are dealt with. In the report from last week, you will note that it takes 2 to 3 staff to bring people into the meeting to be recorded. I also wanted to note that the additional staff resources in terms of tech support for our virtual public participation is required, which we don't usually have when we're meeting in council. I also want to note for the general public and for council that I've done a jurisdictional scan. I've talked to many of my fellow mayors across Ontario. Many, if not most, city councils across Ontario during this pandemic have adopted earlier start times for their special council meetings during the pandemic in an effort to balance staff support, public participation requirements under challenging circumstances, especially virtually. For the area municipalities, all of them are starting earlier. Kitchener and Waterloo, where a majority of council members in Waterloo and some in Kitchener also work full time. They both start at noon. And in conversation with my fellow mayor, Barry Verbanovic today, he said their last couple of council meetings that started at noon didn't end till 7. And I know Councillor Reid has read out some of the times, but we have gone much longer than that in some of them. So in order to accommodate the work and not end up in a situation as recently Hamilton does, who do not have a bylaw to actually stop at 11 p.m., they had a 16-hour council meeting starting at 9:30 in the morning. It's due to the backlog. It takes longer to do that. When we're having public participation, we're not able to see in the chamber who might want to speak to a public meeting. And so that's what some of the challenges are. This again is not normal business. At the same time, I know that it's important for all of us to be here. I will point out that our procedure bylaws say the majority of council have to be present for a quorum, not 100%. In our procedural bylaws, there are reasons why people have to miss, whether it's vacation, it's illness, it's other reasons. They are allowed to miss as long as we've got quorum for that particular meeting. We would prefer all of council to be here. My preference would be to have all council meeting here. But I also know, as CEO of the corporation, and looking at some of the resources that we have to deal with in our city at the moment, it's incredibly challenging. People are not working from home. There's nobody in the office very regularly, even though we've started to bring staff back. So it's a challenge even to put council packages together. And although we ask staff to do that, it's extraordinarily challenging given the resources that we have in order to make this efficient. I can foresee with the workload piling up that we end up having to end the meeting at 11 and continue on and having more and more meetings. So at the moment, with the schedule in front of us, I know it's not ideal, but I also support a 4 o'clock start. If it was my preference, it would be much earlier in the day. However, I will compromise at 4 to make sure that we can get through the backlog of information that we have in front of us. It's interesting to me that as in Councillor Reid's statement, that the general public is unaware of how we are going through these meetings. And when you see inappropriate comments about why this might be a preference, it's not. It's a necessity. And again, I think that the resources that we're having to deal with in the city is an important consideration here too. We are asking that people be flexible. We've all joined up as councillors, knowing that we do have sometimes daytime meetings and we have to be flexible to accommodate the city business, because ultimately we need to continue efficient, good city business under extraordinary circumstances. So with that being said, if there's, I think I see Councillor Devine has his hand up, and we'll go to him just ahead of a vote on this one.
Okay, I just want to double check, make sure I'm clear. You're not allowing me to make an amendment on this motion to change it to 6 o'clock?
Just 1 minute. Councillor Devine, that would be a separate motion, and we now have Councillor Liggett on the line, so I'm going to go to her if she would so like to speak.
I'm not sure why it'd be a separate motion, same motion, just a time change. It's not a separate motion.
I have ruled as chair, it'll be a separate motion. Thank you.
Okay, I don't agree with that.
I take your comments in. I have consulted with the clerk. Councillor Liggett, did you want to speak? I'm just trying to clarify whether she's on mute or whether she wants to speak. Just 1 moment, please. I'll be going to a 2-minute recess while we're managing our technical issues. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Councillor Leggett, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I could hear everything all along there. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just, I couldn't get you off mute. If you could just stay off mute, that would be great. We're just taking a
Okay.
short recess. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is everybody back?
I'm
Great.
here.
Okay, Councillor Liggett, you've got the floor and we can all hear you. Yes,
Thank
everyone?
you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to talk to some of the comments that were made. Now, first off, I don't think Councillor Reid understands what it takes for me to run a business and what it takes to get to a council meeting from here. When she says I miss 1 hour work, that is so not true. And I think that maybe she would like to stop in at my company, spend some time here, see what it takes to do this, see how much it takes to get to a council meeting downtown for 4 o'clock, see what it takes to log in for 3:30 and get through rush hour traffic to do that. That's minimum 2 hours out of a work day for me. And that's a lot of money for me. I have employees that I also have to keep employed. So when I say that it's all hands on deck, I mean it's all hands on deck. I do all of the CAD work in this company. So if something goes wrong in the day, it's my responsibility to fix it, to make sure the shop floor keeps running. And I think that it's a total misrepresentation of what I do, and also my attendance as to the other meetings. We were told that these were emergency meetings when this all started. As it turns out, they weren't emergency meetings. They were being called that because we were under emergency shutdown. But those meetings were regular standard council meetings, but under the guise by wording of being called emergency. Those same meetings could have been held at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night, just as our regular council meetings are. Now, when it comes to what other communities are doing, it doesn't matter what they're doing. This is Cambridge. We set our own rules. You've all had a choice as to what your preference was to be. You had the option of voting for 6 o'clock. If it was a necessity, then why were you given that option? Because it is a possibility to do the meetings at 6 o'clock, but you each chose not to do that. And if you have a preference to have all of council be at the meetings, then do that. Otherwise, all that is virtual signaling when you say that you want to have all of council at these meetings. I would, I just love all of these comments. They're just comments. It's like you're looking for an excuse for why you need to vote for 4 o'clock, and none of those hold water. Like when you talk about the community being in attendance, you're excluding a large number of the public from coming to these meetings virtually. And that's just not acceptable. You have a responsibility to the electorate of the community. You have a responsibility to me as a fellow councillor. And you are just choosing 4 o'clock because that's what you want. It is a preference. It's not a necessity. Staff gave you the option of 6 o'clock, but you didn't take it. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you have concluded your comments.
Well, I have for now. No, actually, I don't think I have.
Okay, you may have the floor again.
I am so disappointed in all of you, except for a couple of you so far, as to how you are being respectful to me, how you are being respectful to the community, how you consider this to be equitable. You're not. And so many times I hear a particular Councillor Reid talk about how we need to be inclusive, we need to be equitable with everybody. Well, that's talking one side of your mouth and taking another action in this instance. It's so wrong, just so wrong. I have a job that I do. When I ran for council, it was 7 o'clock at night. If an emergency meeting happens, I always try to accommodate that sort of thing. But I cannot do it. I cannot keep doing this. And you people know that. You're just I don't even know what you're doing.
Councillor Liggett, we're having trouble hearing you, and I would ask you to keep your comments respectful. Thank you, like the rest of us are trying to.
excuse me, respectful when your actions are not respectful to me. Your words are not respectful to me. So why is it me that is being called on the floor for being respectful?
I will note
Now
that,
I'm done. Now I'm done.
thank you. I will note that it is the majority of council that makes some of the decisions, but what I would ask at the moment, Councillor Liggett, would you be willing to entertain another time like 5 o'clock? And I'm just asking.
I'm asking you why you would choose another time of 5 o'clock when 6 o'clock is available to you. Why are you trying to make me have down to a different time? I'm asking you people to say 6 o'clock. I understand it's the majority vote, but I think that the majority has to have a consideration of another member of council, and that's what you're not doing. It's shameful.
Councillor Liggett, we have also made some decisions regarding what's in front of us. And I know that our opinions are different. We have voted differently than you have in the past. It is still a majority vote. I was willing to see if you would like to compromise here. I'm here all the time. It's up to council who makes this decision, and they've made a decision for the reasons they've put on the table. We do understand that everybody is operating under extraordinary circumstances right now. So I'm just wanting to know if you would consider even a 5 o'clock start and sort of, you know, half that difference. We do have a lot on our agenda. We know that council meetings will take longer. So I'm just asking, would you consider 5 o'clock? We have 4 o'clock on the floor right now. It's just a question to you.
So let me get this clear. You're asking me to make 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, when that compromise will cost me thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, in order to accommodate you guys for 1 hour. That's what you're asking me.
Okay, so.
No, my answer is no. 6 o'clock, reasonable time for council to get together. You can accommodate all the work you need to get done. Staff gave you the possibility of a 6 o'clock. The majority of you chose not to do it, including yourself. When you say you're there all hours, you're full time. You get paid a heck of a lot of money to be there at all hours. The rest of us don't. So please do not use those comments.
And Councillor Liggett, I would just point out that we've all been elected knowing what was in front of us and knowing what hours are part of the job. I among them. I'm just putting that out there. We all have our reasons for running for election. We know what we're facing, but I do acknowledge that this is extraordinary times for all of us. I'm also dealing with a council motion here that was made in a majority for a variety of reasons. So those are completion of my comments. I'm going to just take about a 1-minute recess here just to consult with the clerk, please. Thank you, and I'm back. Councillor Devine, did you have a comment to this? And you need to speak to the motion. Your hand is raised, that's why I'm asking. Sorry, you're back now? Councillor Devine?
Yes.
Did you want to speak to this, but speaking to the motion on hand or to the comments on this particular motion in front of us?
Okay, the motion is, let's read back the motion so we know where we're all at, please.
I'm going to ask the clerk to read it.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll go to Councillor Mann, who moved the motion. Councillor Mann, would you please read the motion again?
Thank you, Your Worship, and just bear with me. I'm trying to find it.
It's all right. I think the clerk has it, or do you have it now?
I have it too.
Go ahead.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Donna Reid that council approve the following start time: 4 o'clock for the meetings noted in Appendix A of Report 20-166 CRS, being the revised schedule of special emergency council meetings to be held during the state of emergency period related to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, I'd like to speak
Thank
to the comments, please.
Just a minute, please.
Sure.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you. The way these meetings are laid out, I don't believe they're special emergency meetings because they're laid out 2 weeks ahead, 3 weeks ahead, 6 weeks ahead. Okay, so to me, an emergency meeting is like within a day or 2 days. I cannot support the 4 o'clock. All right, I'm asking council not to support the 4 o'clock. I would like to see it turned down and have that changed to 6 o'clock. There's no reason in the world why we cannot be meeting at 6 o'clock. We've had, like previously, we met at 7 o'clock. We always had a tech person there at 7. All right, so I mean, and I understand COVID has changed a lot of things, but I am actually quite disappointed in some of the comments I've heard tonight. So this afternoon. So thank you. I'm asking council to turn it down.
Thank you very much. Seeing no further comments, I'm going to ask clerk to call for the vote on the 4 o'clock time. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
Favor.
Sorry?
In favor?
Councillor Devine.
Nay.
Councillor Mehta.
Opposed.
Councillor Liggett.
Opposed.
Councillor Mann.
In favor?
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the second part of the motion. Just one moment while I find it. Councillor Mann, you have the second part of the motion.
I do, Madam Chair, and it's
okay. Go ahead.
It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Donna Reid that council receive correspondence from Councillor Jan Liggett dated June 15th, 2020, requesting to be absent from council meetings for 3 successive months, effective June 23rd, 2020, or until council returns to the regular meeting schedule. And further, that council grant permission to Councillor Jan Liggett to be absent from any special emergency meetings of council effective June 23rd for 3 consecutive months or until such time as council returns to the regular meeting schedule.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff? And seeing none, I have one, if I may, Madam Clerk. If we start at 4 p.m. and we have a very long council meeting, this doesn't preclude Councillor Liggett from coming in at the end of her workday if needed. Is that correct? So you can join at any time that might allow her schedule to do so?
That would be my understanding. That's correct through you, Madam Chair.
And further to that, I know that Councillor Liggett has a lot of issues sometimes that come up in her ward that she would want to speak to. So it would be acceptable then to change our agenda items in order to put something that might be pertinent toward 4 and Councillor Liggett at the end of the agenda so that we would be able to deal with it while she may be able to join us?
That's correct, Your Worship. We would absolutely do that.
Okay, thank you. I see a couple of other questions for staff. Councillor Reid.
No, it's not a question for staff. It is concerning the motion itself. I don't wish to give permission for Councillor Liggett to be absent. I want her to be here. And I think that many of us have spoken to this, that we would like everyone to be here. If she finds she cannot be there for 4 o'clock, maybe she can for 5, maybe she can for 6. But I don't want to say, okay, it's all right for you to not be here. I really want to say the opposite of that, that we really want her to be here for as much as she can.
Thank you. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just wanted to speak to the motion as well, if that timing is correct.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I know that the meeting times are not appropriate for Councillor Liggett. She's made that clear, but I don't want her to be absent from the meetings. I want her here. And I think she's identified one solution to the problem, but I believe that there are other solutions to the problem. And part of that is to, by resolution, council can permit Councillor Liggett to remain and attend at meetings as available. I know she can't get here till 5:30 or 6 o'clock. And if we can put those items to the end of the agenda and issues that she really wants to speak to at the end of the agenda, we can do that. Or if she can write in and provide information about agenda items, that's great too. But I think Councillor Liggett is an important and a very essential member of this team, and she takes her responsibilities to council and to her constituents very seriously. And I don't believe that being absent is beneficial to her or the team or to her constituents. And I really believe that she wants to be here as much as she can. I think the length of our meetings are going to be so long that she might miss the first part of it, but she will be here for the majority of it if she can still come. So I don't want to see her out of the picture. To me, it's very important that she attends when she can because she's part of the team. And sometimes all the team members can't be here at the same time, but if we can get together when we can, it's essential that we do.
Sorry, thank you. Councillor Adshade.
Yeah, I too don't want to see Councillor Liggett take a leave of absence. I think our meetings are going to run late. One of the main reasons we wanted at 4 o'clock is because we figure these meetings are going to run late into the night and we need staff available. So I don't want to see her missing this either. I think that's a very good compromise to put Ward 4 items towards the end of the agenda so that Councillor Liggett will be here to be able to speak to that. So I think that's a fair compromise, and I'm glad to see the clerk's willing to alter the agenda so Councillor Liggett can tune in when she's needed.
Thank you. Councillor Devine.
Yes, thank you to the chair. Well, I'm really glad that city staff is willing to make a compromise on this by putting stuff at the end of the meeting. But, you know, we had an opportunity 10 minutes ago to resolve this. We wouldn't be here right now. Okay. I mean, and you know, it's a shame. It's a shame that council themselves could not compromise. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions from staff?
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Liggett.
What I don't understand, what I don't get, is why you think that my opinion and my vote only matters on Ward 4 issues and not citywide issues. So if I say, when I look at agenda, that every single item on that agenda is important to me and I want to participate, but I can't get there till 6 o'clock, you're going to delay the meeting till 6 o'clock for me? When I look at even what's on the agenda tonight, the ombudsman is something that's very important. It's a citywide issue. And for Councillor Atche to say when I'm needed, what do you mean when I'm needed? I'm needed for every single vote throughout the city, not just Ward 4. What I want to see is all of Ward 4 items that are extremely important to me to be at the end of the agenda, of course. But every single vote we make, every part of our debate, whether it's Ward 4, Ward 8, Ward 6, Ward 2, Ward 1, or the entire city, should be important to every single one of us. And I love it how councillors think that it's important that my voice be there, but at the same time, you're trying to blackmail me into being part of this. I'm done.
Thank you. So we'll move to.
Madam Mayor?
Yep. Just one moment, please, Councillor.
Point of order.
Just 1 minute for a minute, please. Okay, point of order.
I really object to the language used that council is trying to blackmail a member of council. I think an apology is in order.
Just 1 minute. Thank you. I hear your point of order. I will just ask for respectful language from all members of council, and we're going to go to the vote. Madam Clerk, we'll call for the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Atche.
Opposed.
Councillor Devine. Councillor Devine.
Sorry about that, opposed.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Liggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
Opposed.
Councillor Reid.
Opposed.
Councillor Wolf.
Opposed.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to call for a 10-minute recess. So we're going to stay online and mute us and put our screens to rest, and we'll have a few minutes for a bio break. Thank you.
Are you still in emergency or you need me or what? I have no idea. No. Yes. Really, of course. No. Yeah. Yes. They are already. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, about 5:30. Yeah. Yeah, but he voted wrong on the second part. I think he thought he was voting the right way, and he made a mistake in his vote. Crazy.
Okay, welcome back. Have we got all members of council there?
Here.
Okay, we're going back to Madam Clerk just to clarify the last motion. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. To clarify, the last motion did not carry. As such, the request from the councillor to be absent from council meetings has not been approved.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move forward now and to item number 5, grants to groups. We have 2 registered delegations today on this item and 2 items of correspondence. I'll ask that we're patient while we make arrangements for the delegates to join the meeting. Once the delegates join our meeting, they will have each 5 minutes to speak to their item. Our first delegation is Washington Silk, who is registered to speak to the grants to groups item on behalf of KW Counseling Services. We're going to contact Washington, have them access our meeting, and invite them in to speak. So I'll ask for your patience while our staff take a moment to make this happen. Is she there? Thank you for your patience. Due to technical difficulties, we have to go to the next delegation first, who is Jean-Claude Kaloubi, who is registered to speak to the grants to groups on behalf of the Cambridge Cultural Association. So we've contacted Jean-Claude and he's in line to speak to us. Just one moment. We're just trying to clarify and get one of the 2 delegates online. Please be patient.
I also really think that you have a right to range, which I feel like is not exciting for a teenager, but I get super excited.
Just a moment. Washington?
Yes. Hello?
We have somebody. Yes, let me just explain. We've been having some technical challenges on our delegations and our call-in. I apologize. So members of council will go back to our first delegation, and we do now have Washington Silk, who has registered to speak to the grants to groups item on behalf of KW Counseling Services. We're glad for your patience. Thank you. So Washington, thanks for joining us today to delegate. So a reminder that you've got 5 minutes to address council. Please be sure. I am going to just explain to council at this point. I have a major migraine today, so I'm struggling to read because I'm light sensitive. So I really apologize. So Washington's remarks will need to relate directly to the agenda item that they are speaking to. Otherwise, we may ask Washington to end her remarks. We do have rules of engagement in council meetings and ask that you ensure that your remarks are respectful and that you refrain from asking questions of council. So I'll advise you when your 5 minutes are up, at which time council may have some questions for you. Once we're ready to move forward with the item, we'll have you stay on the call while we discuss the item, but our staff will then mute you so you can hear the outcome of council's decision. We'll then remove you from the meeting once the council's decision has been voted on. And welcome again, Washington. You have now 5 minutes to speak to this item. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much for that welcome. I doubt it will take 5 minutes, but I'm happy to be here and share a little bit about our program. So KWME supports LGBTQ youth in Waterloo Region. We do this by offering counseling, one-on-one, individual and family. We've been doing that since 2005 with the goal to kind of create a community where everybody feels like they belong. But we sort of realized at some point that counseling was not enough to support people's well-being. So for example, the Suicide Prevention Council released a report last year that talked about how LGBTQ youth are 4 times more likely to attempt or complete suicide than their peers. So from there, for many years now, for about 10 years, we decided that one of the things we really needed was a youth group, with the idea of it increases people's a sense of belonging and decreases their isolation within the community. So we've had a youth group that has run very successfully in Kitchener for many years. And then almost 2 years ago now, we started a pilot program in partnership with the city of Kitchener and the idea exchange to start a youth group in Cambridge, as there is a barrier for youth to come to the youth group between Kitchener and Cambridge. So that youth group is very well attended. Before COVID-19, it was meeting every other Tuesday. So theoretically, and then the group in Kitchener was meeting opposite Tuesday. So that means every Tuesday of the week, a youth had a place to go if they needed to. We were able to successfully secure ongoing funding for that group that covered, I think, like my rough guesstimation right now is, I think 75% of the cost. So we applied to the Grants for Groups application to seek the rest of that funding so we could continue the group ongoingly. Since COVID-19 has happened, the group is still meeting. I'm actually in the group right now, the miracle of technology. So I'm sitting on a Zoom call on mute, waving to the youth, telling them about the call, as well as talking to you right now. So I suppose that's all I have to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Washington. Just if you're on, I just want you to, you might not be able to see my badge, what I'm wearing today. Okay to be me.
Oh, yeah.
My ribbon.
Awesome.
Yep. So at this point, I will ask for questions of the delegation from members of council. And I don't see any. Are there any other comments from members of council to their delegation? Seeing none, I just wanted to make a comment and just ask a question there. Washington, how many individuals do you have with you today?
4.
Okay, and how many
4,
individuals do you usually serve on an ongoing basis?
For the youth group or for counseling?
Yeah, for the youth group.
So for the youth group, we had 108 unique individuals last year.
Okay. And for counseling?
That number is not on the tip of my head, but it's in the hundreds. Like there's 80 people on our wait list right now, which is higher than it's ever been. Like our OK to Me specific wait list for counseling. So that number was probably like annually, probably 500 people at least.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. I don't see any other further comments or questions from members of council. So you may stay on the line to listen to this item as it comes forward. But thank you again, and to the group that you're with today for joining us.
Great.
Okay, now we'll move ahead with our next delegation. And I'm just going to check to see if we have Jean-Claude on our line. We're just getting our next delegation on the line, who is Jean-Claude Kaloubi. Jean-Claude, can you hear us now? It's Catherine.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. We had some difficulty finding you, but thank you very much for joining. As I have said to members of council, I'm Catherine McGarry. Thanks for coming. But Jean-Claude Kaloubi has registered to speak to the Grants to Groups item on behalf of Cambridge Cultural Association. So thank you very much for your patience, Jean-Claude. So just a reminder that you have 5 minutes in which to address council. So ensure that your remarks relate directly to the agenda item that you're speaking to. Otherwise, we might ask you to end your remarks. We do have rules of engagement in council meetings and ask that you ensure that your remarks are respectful and that you refrain from asking questions of council. I will advise you when your 5 minutes is up, at which time council may have questions for you, and I'll guide you through that process. So once we are ready to move through that process or with the item, you have to stay on the call while we discuss the item, but our staff will mute you at that time so you can hear the outcome of council's decision. We'll then remove you from the meeting once council's decision has been voted on, and you're always welcome to join us online through YouTube channel if you wish to see the rest of council. So at this point,
Okay.
I want to welcome you, and you now have 5 minutes to speak to this item. Thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, the council. My name is Jean-Claude Kilobi. I'm from the Cambridge Cultural Association. I'm actually speaking today regarding the funding we received. Last year, we received $3,500 to run the multicultural event that took place at the 4 parks. Now, this year, when we submitted our proposal for funding, we actually asked for more money, except that we received less than what we were awarded last year. So I'm speaking today to find out if the amount can be double. Here's the reason why I'm asking the amount to be double. First of all, when we submitted the applications, if you look at our audited financial statements, we spent $12,000 last year to do that festival. Now, out of that $12,000, $2,700 came from our own pocket, basically the association pocket. So we took our own money and we put toward the festival. So now this year, because a lot of festivals in the city of Cambridge were canceled, so we're actually thinking about running something maybe November or December. And that's why we're actually asking if it's possible to get between $6,000 and $7,000 so we can run a better and maybe a bigger festival. So that was my remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you just very much, Jean-Claude. If you just wouldn't mind staying on the line, and I'll just see if there's any questions from members of council. And I do have a question for you from Councillor Reid. I'm going to ask Councillor Reid to unmute and question you. Go ahead.
Sure.
Welcome, Jean-Claude. If you do something in November, what type of an activity were you planning? Because I know what you did in Forbes Park certainly couldn't be done in November. So it would have to be something totally different. And I'm assuming that you have made some plans if you're going to move to November as to what activities you might be able to do that would be similar to the kind of activities you would have held in the summer.
So right now, thank you so much, Councillor. So as of right now, we're still in the planning stage. So we're actually thinking about running a theater, like an indoor theater in the city of Cambridge, and basically have an event, the same type of event, like a dance, music, and eventually food.
Okay.
Councillor Reid, you're done?
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Jean-Claude, I've got Councillor Mann to ask you a question. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Thank you, Jean-Claude, for coming out this evening. Just a question for you. I know you said that you're looking in November or December and it'll be an indoor event and you're in the planning stages, but is there anything concrete to say that that's going to go through yet? We just need to have some kind of, I suppose we need evidence that this event is going to follow through. And I know it might be a little early for that, but just wonder how far along you are in the planning process.
So far, we have not even get the place yet. So we only had 2 days. 2 days ago, then we start thinking about having an indoor event. I spoke with a gentleman, I think it's Tyler from the city. That was 2 days ago. So he basically told us that, you know what, if you have any event after September 30th, it's possible. So we spoke with him 2 days ago. So we only had 2 days since we got that information. So we're still really early in the planning stage. So nothing concrete at this point, sir.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. And if I can follow up, Your Worship,
Go ahead.
would it be better for you to come to us a little later, Jean-Claude, and give us some of the planning proposals that you have and ask for the money then? When you
Yes,
have,
I will not. Sorry, sir.
I'm just thinking when you have something concrete, it would be easier for us to say what we could or could not do.
Sure, I would love to do that.
Thanks, Jean-Claude.
Thank you very much. Are there any other further questions of the delegate? Seeing none, I want to thank you again, Jean-Claude, for coming to our meeting to delegate today. I would also suggest, and I'm sure we're all aware, it'll depend on what status the province is in due to COVID-19 at that particular time. And I know that's thrown off a lot of people's plans this year.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to remind you that you will be now put on mute and you can listen in to the council discussion from here. But thank you again for coming to delegate today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Okay, now we can move to the motion. So Councillor Devine, you have that motion. Would you please now put it on the floor, read it in its entirety. Councillor Devine.
Give me 1 second while I find it, please. I have to go through my email to find that.
Yep, I will.
Just give me 1 second here. Okay, let me just find it. Here we are. No, that's not it. So I don't believe I was sent a hard copy.
I'm happy to read that for you, Councillor Devine, if you wish.
Yeah, you can go ahead. I'm still looking for it.
That report 20075 CRS grants to groups be received, and that the recommendations from the grants to groups review committee as outlined in Appendix A be approved by council, and that council approve the attached letter of agreement included in Appendix B, which must be completed by all grant recipients prior to the city transferring approved funding. Motion to be moved by Councillor Devine, motion to be seconded by Councillor Adshade.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff at this particular time? Seeing none, are there any comments from council members? Seeing none, I will now ask our clerk to call for the vote. So, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Yes.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Liggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Thank you very much. All right, Council, we are now dealing with item number 9, reappointment of the Ombudsperson contract 2020 to 2022. Councillor Reid, you have the motion. Please read the motion in its entirety.
I do, and thank you for your patience. It is moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mehta that report 20-165 CRS reappointment of the Ombudsperson contract 2020 to 2022 be received, and that the annual report from Agree Incorporated for the period of June 1st, 2018 to May 31st, 2019, attached as Appendix A, be received. And that the annual report from Agree Incorporated for the period of June 1st, 2019 to May 31st, 2020, attached as Appendix B, be received. And that council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute a renewal agreement for the period June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2020, subject to the satisfaction of the city solicitor. And further, that the Council of the City of Cambridge requests that the Government of Ontario standardize the usage of the term Ombudsperson or Ombudsman in place of Ombudsman when referring to the office of Ombudsman.
All right, thank you, Councillor Reid. There are some questions for staff, so I'll take Councillor Adshade first. Councillor Adshade.
Thanks, Your Worship. This is a question for staff. When I was reading through the report, I'm just wondering, is there any advantage to having Agree? Like, would they be able to get to disputes quicker, maybe pay more attention than rather than a large would have to look at? I'm just wondering if there's any advantages to having Agree as our ombudsperson.
Thank you. Who would like to take that question?
Through you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to answer that. I think we had heard at our June 16th or June 2nd council meeting, I'm sorry, I can't recall, I think June 2nd, that the advantage to being part of this regional agreement would be that a local organization can provide the local lens to issues that may be related to Cambridge specific. So that is one advantage. And as well, you will see that you get a personalized report on an annual basis, whereas you will be part of a larger annual report. Should there be any Cambridge specific investigations that come up through an annual report from the provincial ombudsman's office. So if there wasn't anything Cambridge specific through the provincial ombudsman's office, then we wouldn't be included in that annual report. So this way you're just getting a little bit more of a personalized approach.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you finished, Councillor Adshade? I can't find you on the screen. There you are. Yep. Okay, I'll move forward to Councillor Wolfe. Councillor Wolfe.
Through you, Madam Mayor. I'm just curious about the retainer for the Ombudsman. And if we vote for this motion, are we just receiving these things for information, or are we saying that we're going to keep this Ombudsman contract for another 2 years? So I guess how much is the retainer, and are we voting to keep it for another 2 years or just to the end of May 31st, 2020?
Through you, Madam Chair, this is a renewal for an additional 2 years. That's what this request is. The retainer is a $12,000 cost to the municipality. It is part of our operating budget annually. And the request right now is for that renewal.
Okay, so if we don't renew it, it's zero cost if we go with the province?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Devine. Councillor Devine.
Yes, thank you through the chair. I don't see a need for us to use Agree. We are, as taxpayers, we are already paying for the ombudsman. Our taxpayers in the city are paying for the ombudsman. Taxpayers in the province are paying for the ombudsman. It was put in to help us. Okay, I don't see where we need to be paying Agree over and above, like, you know, double the tax, so to speak. And we speak about the region. The largest municipality in the region does not use Agree. They use the ombudsman's office. So I believe we should turn this down. I'm asking council to turn it down. There's nothing value added here for us that I can see. And it's not, and agreed, it's not a lot of money. Okay, we're talking, off the get-go, $12,000. All right, but there's no need for the taxpayers to be paying that twice. So I'm asking council to turn it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mann is next, and then Armetta. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just for you, Danielle, is it $6,000 a year for the $12,000 coverage? Or is it $12,000 per year for 2 years? Or for each year, rather?
Through you, Madam Chair, it is $12,000 per year, $24,000 for the 2 years.
Right.
As the retainer.
Thank you. And then for the previous year, we had one complaint, and that was a landlord request about some type of landlord-tenant inquiry, and that was the only complaint or report that we had through Agree last year.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, that is correct. For the 2019-2020 year, one complaint was all that was received.
Thanks, Danielle.
Okay, Councillor Armetta, and then Councillor Wolf. Councillor Armetta.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I do appreciate a lot of the feedback I've heard on this. I'm going to be opposing the motion, and the reason why is I view it as unnecessary duplication. And I know the local context was mentioned, but he's from Dundas, which is not exactly local. And not all the municipalities in the region use this, and I just think it's money well spent to go with the provincial one. So that's.
Sorry, you cut yourself off there. Are you completed? Councillor Mehta?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I too will be opposing this motion. I think $24,000 is a lot of money, and we could better use it. We just heard about grants to groups where small amounts make a big difference. And even though it's in our budget right now, I think we can better use that money. So I will be opposing it because like Councillor Mehta has said and Councillor Devine, we can be served by the Ontario Ombudsman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mehta, you still have your hand up. Can you lower it? Thank you. Councillor Leggett, did you want to speak to this item?
Yes, I did.
Go ahead.
I'm going to oppose this motion as well, based on all of the things that I sent to you and the email that I sent, thinking I might not be able to be on this call. As far as getting a personal report from Agree, that's because they're under contract, so there's a requirement from it. But when the Ontario Ombudsman does their complete investigation and comes out with their ruling, they give a full opinion, no different than a judge in a court. So you will still get a complete report of any filing that may be found against us. I also have concerns. The provincial ombudsman is totally unbiased, and I think that when you have a contract with somebody and that they are looking to renew that contract, that there is the potential of bias. I'm not saying there is one. I'm saying there's a potential of it. So if we want to keep ourselves looking as if we are above board on everything, I think that that's another reason to go with the provincial ombudsman. Looking through their cases, I think that they're pretty fair all around in their rulings, and that duplication of service, the cost to us, we have no idea what complaints could come against us in any given year. And so those costs can escalate. So when it says that there's no anticipated future costs other than what we've already put into the budget, that's not necessarily true, because we could have 2 cases filed against us. We could have 25 cases filed against us. So we have no idea what the cost would be if we were to fulfill a contract with this company. And again, as Councillor Mehta said, they are not a local organization. They would be looking at every case brand new, no different than the provincial ombudsman. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions of staff? Seeing none, I have a couple. One is for the provincial ombudsman. If indeed we go with a provincial ombudsman and turn down the renewal of the Agree contract, will there be a change in timing likely for the provincial ombudsman to attend to an issue that may arise here in Cambridge?
I don't know that actually. To be honest with you, Madam Chair, I'm unsure of what the response time is to their complaint process. I do know that we would want to make sure that we communicate directly with the provincial ombudsman to ensure they are aware of the contact that we would set in place for them. We could ask for those kinds of timeline from the provincial ombudsman so that we could set an expectation. But in terms of response times for investigations that they perform on our behalf, I don't know what that expectation would be.
Thank you, and that really does speak to just one of the concerns I had about potentially going with the provincial ombudsman might be the time to be able to address the concerns if a citizen should go forward. So my second question regarding that is, if we went with the provincial ombudsman and tried them out for 2 years, and we found that the service wasn't adequate for what our citizens require, we could then revert back and potentially enter another agreement with another company to provide the service to us?
Absolutely. If that was council's choice, then council could look to do that.
Okay. And the last thing I did want to say was that in the last time that this came up at council, I wasn't able to complete my comments. I know that Agree does serve some of the area municipalities, and the reason that I was asking whether that would interact with their potential contracts with this company that we share was would then, if we do not renew their contract, could we then provide some staff direction in order to alert or notify our other area municipalities that also use this contracted service that we're stepping out of it, so that they are able to at least know that?
Yes, that would be appreciated.
Thank you. Are there any comments further to this item from members of council? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call for the vote. So I'll ask the clerk to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Can we have the motion read again, please?
Yeah,
certainly.
That's a good idea.
I think Councillor Adshade might have confused the motion.
Yes, Councillor, sorry. Madam Clerk is going to read it out again.
That report 20165 CRS reappointment of the Ombudsman contract 2020 to 2022 be received, and that the annual report from Agree Inc. for the period of June 1st, 2018 to May 31st, 2019 attached as Appendix A be received, and that the annual report from Agree Inc. for the period of June 1st, 2019 to May 31st, 2020 as attached as Appendix B be received, and the council authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute a renewal of agreement for the period of June 1st, 2020 to May 31st, 2020, subject to the satisfaction of the city solicitor.
Thank you. Okay, and we're ready to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
You're unmuted now. No, you're muted.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Nay.
Councillor Mehta.
Opposed.
Councillor Mann.
Opposed.
Councillor Liggett.
Opposed.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
Opposed.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
And Councillor Wolf.
I forgot Councillor
Opposed.
Wolf there. Sorry, my page skipped. And that fails. Does not carry.
Yep. Thank you. So what we might do then at this point is give staff direction to alert the other area municipalities that we will not be redoing the contract for Agree, and that we'll be moving ahead with any issues that come forward to utilize the provincial ombudsperson. Is that okay with council?
That's
Yep, I
fine.
see nods there. Yep. Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, we are now moving ahead to item number 10, city-owned buildings, 17 Cambridge Street and 84 Water Street South. So Councillor Adshade, I believe you have this motion. Would you please read it in its entirety?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Your Worship. City-owned buildings, 17 Cambridge Street and 84 Water Street South, Landreth College. Recommendation, that report 20. That's 152.
I can't hear Councillor Adshade.
Neither can I.
I know his screen's frozen. Just give a moment
52,
here.
City-owned South, and that council approve
Councillor Adshade?
Yeah.
Yeah, your screen was frozen. We couldn't hear you. I'm sorry. I'm going to have you take it from the top again.
Okay, sorry. I'm having a unstable internet again, so I'm fading in and out. So
the one thing
hopefully,
I might, Councillor Adshade, what I might suggest to you is just stop the video and allow us to hear your voice, and that may actually solve some of the freezing problems. So if you'll just turn your camera off, and that might help.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'll try that again. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I'll try that. I'll go again. Okay. Okay. City-owned buildings, 17 Cambridge Street and 84 Water Street South, Landreth College. Recommendation, that report 20-152 CRS city-owned buildings, 17 Cambridge Street and 84 Water Street South, Landreth College be received. And that council approve a centralized office for bylaw, parking and security at 17 Cambridge Street. And that council approve a transfer of additional funding to capital project A-00142-10 in the amount of $85,664 from the facility maintenance reserve fund for the renovations at 17 Cambridge Street. And that council provide direction to issue a request for interest to find a suitable tenant for Landreth Cottage located at 84 Water Street South. Market conditions to lease such a building are appropriate as determined by Realty Services. Did we hear that?
That was perfect. Thank you. You can try turning your camera on again.
Okay, I was hoping I could speak.
Sorry, it's freezing you. Did you want to speak to that now?
Yeah, great. Yeah,
okay.
I did actually. I did want to speak to that. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm in favor of this motion. I'm in favor of this motion. I think it's a good thing that parking services are going to come totally under the city umbrella and supervision. And it'll be a proper facility with proper parking and proper equipment storage for bylaw. And it'll provide better, I think it'll provide better service and better over once this is done, I think it'll provide better service for the city. And it'll open up City Hall and for much needed space. And I really think we got to do better than having bylaw officers changing the washrooms. So I fully support this motion.
Thank you. I've got another couple of speakers. Councillor Devine, go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. First of all, I want to comment on staff on how thorough the report is. All three of them. Very, very well done. And I think all the questions were answered that were thrown out at staff, and some of them were pretty tough questions. Okay, because I think we had multiple people working on this at a given time, and everybody wanted to, you know, get their 2 cents worth in. But as I can see now, there's 3 different reports, so that's good. Like all the bases are covered. We cannot leave a building that we purchased, I think it's 2017, I think, in the same state of repair as what we got it. It's sitting right next to City Hall. It's common knowledge is that's a city-owned building. It's just going in it's degrading on a daily basis. It needs to get used. It needs to be lived in, so to speak. It needs to be cleaned up. It needs to be tidied up, because we don't know need that scar in the core. You know, we'd get anybody else, if they would own that building, we'd want them to do something with it. So here's our opportunity to do something. It's not going to cost a huge amount of money. And it certainly will benefit the city. And it's coincidental, it's coming at a time with COVID-19, because now workspace needs to be opened up in buildings. So now this is the opportunity for us to open up workspace in City Hall. So I think that the timing is right. I think we have all the information we need. I fully support what's being done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I've got another couple of speakers. Councillor Mann is next, and then Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And through you, I too support this motion. I think staff have done a great job in answering the questions that were put forth at the last meeting. And it makes great sense to have bylaw working together with parking and security. And especially when we have more staff coming into an area and physical distancing is mandatory at this point in time. And it's an appropriate facility for this type of service. And it's basically on the same footprint as City Hall. So it's right next door to us. And I think it's very strategic as to the future plans of the city. So well done. And certainly I'll support this motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reid is next. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Through you, I do support this motion as well. I do feel the same as Councillor Devine, that we shouldn't be leaving a building empty for several years, and that we need to make a decision on what we're doing with this building. And the report that we received tells us that this is a very good use for this building, and that we can then have our bylaw officers in one place. I understand that quite often their offices are noisy because of the walkie-talkies that they are required to have on, and that can be quite disturbing within the City Hall. And if they're in their own space, that would be much better. The other thing that concerned me very much was the fact that when the bylaw officers are out there interacting with people or with in places where it might not be as clean as you would like it to be, they want to come and shower before they go home, so they make sure that they're not taking home things that are dangerous to take home. What we have now in the way of showers is totally inadequate, as I understand it. And so I think that we owe it to our staff to provide them with a proper place in which to clean up before they do go home. And I really feel that I need to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Leggett, do you have comments to this?
No, other than, I think I was on a tour of the building, and I would say that the building itself is in excellent shape. Construction-wise, it's in excellent shape. The walls are solid, the floors are solid, all of the main structure is solid. It just needs to be brought up to date to insulation and, maybe some wiring and plumbing in order to accommodate what's going to need to be done. But I think we bought a very sound building, and we got value for the dollar. And as well, our staff have been pretty vigilant about keeping the heat on so that it wasn't able to degrade. So we have done a good job. The taxpayers' dollars were well spent in the purchase, and I think taxpayers' dollars will be well spent in the future in this building.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for staff or any comment for members of council? Seeing none, I just really wanted to make a comment and thank staff very much for this report. I think it did answer all the questions. And actually, I note that many of the council have not been in to see what's happened in some of our staff areas because of COVID-19 and not being in the building. So I know I did take a couple of photos last night from the 4 new workstations that have been built actually in the city manager's, just outside the city manager's office. So that we know that as we continue to increase our staff complement, that we need more spaces for them to work, and we're putting them in where we can. So I'm very much in favor of this motion to make sure that we have a far better efficient use of space, a far better place for staff to, for bylaw and our city parking staff to collaborate, to meet together as a team, to organize their work and ensure that they can find their equipment, charge it up when need be, and also to attend to some of the personal hygiene that they need to when they've been out in unsavory places. I've heard that complaint from them as well. So I think this is a good plan forward, and I'll be in support. Seeing no further questions or comments from staff, or not comments for staff, and we're ready to call the vote then. Madam Clerk, please call for the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
Opposed?
Councillor Liggett.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next item is item 11, Bosdale Farms Subdivision Phase 1 Municipal Servicing and Road Construction Tender. So Councillor Ermetta, I believe you have this motion. Please read it in its entirety.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I do. This motion is moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Wolf. Bosdale Farm Subdivision Phase 1 Municipal Servicing and Road Construction Tender. That report 20-164 CRS Bosdale Farm Subdivision Phase 1 Municipal Servicing and Road Construction Tender be received, and that council approve the transfers to from reserve funds and the financial implications section of this report. And further, that council endorse the award of Bosdale Farm Subdivision Phase 1 Municipal Servicing and Road Construction Tender to Keyswater Excavating of St. Clements to the total tendered price of $6,711,778, and being the lowest complainant bid received.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do believe that Mr. Shaw wanted to speak to this item. I don't see any questions just yet. Mr. Shaw, did you have some comments to provide at first? And then I'll also call for some more questions from members of council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's Shara who's going to provide the comments.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. No, you just
sorry.
Go.
Okay, sorry, my apologies. I would just like to provide some introductory comments to this report. So as you're well familiar, the city's rec complex site is located within the Bosdale Farm subdivision. So in moving forward on the review and approval of that subdivision, staff have worked with the developer to develop a cost-sharing agreement, and it splits the costs for servicing between what are the developer's residential costs as his development proceeds, as well as what is needed to service the city's rec complex site. So we've developed what were originally termed cost-sharing principles, that allocated the costs of those items such as water main, sanitary sewer, stormwater, road between the developer and the city's rec complex site. And then we also added a sort of a third layer to that with, there were some oversizing of certain services to provide capacity for future developments that are external to the Bosdale site. And those oversizings are development charge funded. So the cost principles are split between Bosdale, the city as a landowner, and ourselves, and the development charges. The cost sharing principles were reviewed and approved by council as part of the draft plan recommendation report last year. And then a subsequent cost sharing agreement was executed early in 2020. So the developer has led the tender for this works. They have followed the city's procurement bylaw. The tender was posted by the developer, but advertised on the city's site, so it was deemed a public tender. And the city was involved in review and are supporting the recommendations in the report before you tonight. The reason we've brought the report for you is that there are some adjustments required in the funding sources, and one section of the city's contribution is slightly over budget. So we're requesting those additional fees to cover that.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there questions from council for staff? Seeing none, are there any comments for council? Seeing none, I think we're ready to call for the vote. So I'll ask our clerk to call for the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Liggett. Oh, have I not? Okay. Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reed.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor. In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor. And has Councillor Liggett dropped off the call?
I believe so.
Okay.
That carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next item of business is item number 12, the recommendation report, zoning bylaw amendment 806 Duke Street, 2700945 Ontario Inc. And Councillor Mann, I see you're at the ready. You have the motion. Please read it in its entirety.
I am, Your Worship, and it's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Mehta, and the recommendation that report 20-058 CD be received, and that Cambridge Council approve the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, amend the zoning from the R5 CO dwellings converted to office uses to R5 CO section 4.1.386 to allow 3 residential dwelling units within the existing structure without an office use and 2 driveways as set out in report 20-058 CD. And the Cambridge Council is satisfied that a subsequent public meeting in accordance with section 3417 of the Planning Act is not required. And further, that the bylaw attached to recommendation report 20-058 CD be passed.
Thank you. Is there any questions from council to staff? Seeing none, are there any comments from members of council? Councillor Reed.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment on the fact that I think this is a really good way to use this particular building, and I'm hoping that because it's close to downtown Preston, that it might be available for somebody at a good rent rate and possibly help us with the housing. And so I'm really pleased to see that it can be converted, and if we can help in that regard, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments further to that? Councillor Reid, you just put your hand up again?
No, I'm trying to get it down. Okay. There we go.
And mute, please. Thank you. Okay, and I'd also like to just comment that I think this is a good infill project and very supportive of this. I think we're ready now to call for the vote. So I'll ask the clerk to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
Unmute, please.
Aye. Aye.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Okay, thank you. Our next item is the introduction and consideration of bylaws. Councillor Wolf, I believe you have this motion. Please read it in its entirety. Councillor Wolf.
Through you, Madam Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Reid. Introduction and consideration of bylaws 20-054, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge to amend bylaw 187-06, being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic and parking, general wording. Next, 20-055, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge to amend bylaw 187-06, being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic and parking, Schedule 24, reserved lanes. Next one, 20-056, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge to designate a community improvement project area in the City of Cambridge for a transit-oriented development community improvement plan. 20-057, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge to amend zoning bylaw number 150-85 as amended with respect to land municipally known as 806 Duke Street. Next one, 20-058, being a bylaw of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge to exempt certain lots or blocks pursuant to subsection 50, bracket 5 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, see page P113, as amended, part lot control exemption 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14 Harrison Drive. And last but not least, 20-059, being a bylaw of the City of Cambridge to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Cambridge at its meeting held on the 23rd day of June 2020. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Any comments from members of council? Seeing none, I'll ask our clerk to call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Wasn't it? Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
Aye.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we move to the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Devine, I believe you have this motion.
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Moved by
go ahead.
myself, second by Councillor Adshade. 20-059, being a bylaw of the City of Cambridge to confirm the proceedings of council of the Corporation of City of Cambridge at its meeting held on the 23rd day of June 2020, passed and enacted this 23rd day of June 2020.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I will now call for the vote. Madam Clerk.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
That carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we move to the close of our meeting, and Councillor Ermetta, you have this motion. Would you please read it in its entirety?
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Mann, that this meeting be adjourned at 7:15 p.m.
Thank you very much. Seeing no comment, I'll ask Madam Clerk to call for the vote.
Councillor Adshade.
In favor.
Councillor Devine.
Aye.
Councillor Mehta.
In favor.
Councillor Mann.
In favor.
Councillor Reid.
In favor.
Councillor Wolf.
In favor.
Mayor McGarry.
In favor.
And that carries.
I guess that's no surprise. Thanks, everybody. That does conclude our meeting for today. Thanks for joining us. And a reminder to stay safe, practice physical distancing, wash your hands often, wear a mask when physical distancing is difficult. Thanks so much, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.